Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update from RAU'S IAS. Do not forget to subscribe to our Telegram channel for all the updates and materials.
Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why and how of newspaper analysis from the perspective of civil services examination. Today we have taken up Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 17th of November 2021. The articles which we are going to cover today have been displayed on the screen, and let us now begin the discussion.
So the first article which we have taken up for today's discussion is a column which appears on page number 8, for more than a waiver. And this deals with the announcement by Russia that supplies of S-400 Triumph system to India have already begun, and it has set the stage for Russian President Vladimir Putin's visit in early December. Now the deal for the air defense system, which are by the way best in the world, was signed in 2018 during Mr. Putin's visit then. In 2017, the US had passed its Countering America's Adversary Through Sanctions Act or CAATSA that provided for economic and travel sanctions against countries and officials that transacted significant military and intelligence contracts with Russia, North Korea and Iran. And so clearly you can see actions taken by America, be it executive action or legislative actions, are threatening India's ties with very important defense partner. Consider this, in 2018, UPSC had asked, Israel's relations with Israel have of late acquired a depth and diversity which cannot be rolled back, discuss. In 2019, UPSC had asked, the time has come for India and Japan to build a strong contemporary relationship, one involving global and strategic partnerships that will have a great significance for Asia and the world as a whole, comment. So you can see that almost every year, the bilateral relationship of India with an important country is one of the most probable topics which can be asked in mains examination. And so we are going to discuss various pillars of bilateral relations, and we will see what are the convergence written in blue color and what are the divergences between India and US written in red colors. Now you should understand that the direction which relationship between two nations takes is dependent on various factors. Of course, role of leaders of the two nations are very important, and also the personal chemistry between the two leaders. But the two leaders cannot take two nations away if they have strong defense ties, economic ties, like-minded thinking on strategic matters as well as on various other international matters. And so although the personal approach of the leaders are very important, but the pillars on which the relationship between two nations is dependent also play a key role. And with the change of president in United States of America, these things are unlikely to change. Some things will change, and we will see how they will help or hurt India. There are certain things which you should understand. The convergence in the foreign policy of India and US is not just out of interest in international matters. We share common democratic values. Also, there is a strong people-to-people ties between the two nations. There are around 4 million people of Indian origin or Indian citizens residing currently in US, and election of Kamala Harris as the vice president is a reflection of that fact. And so we are not going to discuss the cultural as well as people-to-people relations, because currently what dominates the relationship is the matter of defense, economy, strategy and nuclear power. And let us go into them one by one. So the convergence of the interests between India and US are written in blue color on the right hand side. And so in the past few decades, the strengthening of the relationship between India and US is indicated by the increasing role the arms import from US is playing into India's defense policy. America has become second largest arms supplier to India. Not only that, just last week we have concluded 4 sets of foundational agreements with United States of America. And conclusion of these 4 sets of foundational agreements like COMCASA, LEMUA, BECA and ISA have increased the depth of the defense ties with America. But that is not to suggest that there is no issue as far as defense ties are concerned. India has always been wary of arms sale to Pakistan. Not just the arms sale, but very high-end technology is often sold to Pakistan by American companies, and that has always been a cause of concern, and the best example would be the F-16 fighter jets. After defense ties, if we analyze our economic relations, it is growing at a very rapid pace. USA is India's largest trading partner. The bilateral trade in goods and services has grown by more than 10% per annum over the past 2 years to reach $142 billion in 2018. So that is a very big demonstration of the good economic ties with America. We know that American firms are already a major job creator in our country, especially in services sector. Not just that, the investment by Indian firms and companies are increasing in USA. And so we can say that the economic intermingling of India and United States is mutual and it is from both the sides. But that is not to suggest that there are no issues. Recently, in his only term as president, Mr. Trump has left no stone unturned to designate India as a tariff king. The import barriers imposed by our country has always been a problem for America, and they have always opposed any such kind of barrier, especially on American imports. We know that earlier India used to get certain privileges as far as its exports to USA is concerned, but last year India was removed from generalized system of preferences status by America. Now this removal has created a big trouble for Indian exports to US, because India was the largest beneficiary of GSP, because over 1/10 of US goods imports from India entered duty free under this particular program, and GSP removal has reinstated the American import duties on Indian exports, and it has put our MSME sector and handicraft sector under a lot of pressure. Then from time to time, United States Trade Representative Office or USTR comes up with Section 301 investigations against India. Most recently, the investigation against India was started for imposing digital services taxes that may affect American companies. Earlier, Section 301 investigations have come up due to lack of enforcement of intellectual property rights by our country. Then various kinds of subsidies, agricultural subsidies, manufacturing subsidies have been challenged from time to time by US at WTO. And so, these issues are still unresolved. There is no indication as to where Mr. Joe Biden is going to move on these matters, but since the corporate lobby not only funds the elections but also employs a lot of people, and so it would be unfair to expect that there will be a U-turn on these matters. Let us now look at the strategic aspect of the relationship of India and US. So first and foremost is that America has openly supported India's entry in international organization, whether it is regarding UNSC reforms or it is about entry into nuclear supplier group. America has openly supported India. So that shows a kind of convergence. Also, not only that, both countries have become more vocal in their support for freedom of navigation, including in the South China Sea. They both have concerns and big concerns about China's Belt and Road Initiative and share similar views about free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific. Not only that, India is seen as a pillar of America's pivot to Asia policy. So there lies the strategic convergences. But the convergences end there. There are a lot of issues which demonstrate that they have to go a long way from here. First is India's still continuing and a big dependence on Russia, especially in matters of defense. We know that most of our defense weapons and communication systems are derived from Russia or earlier from Soviet Union. And so India continues to have a big dependence on Russia. Even now, if you see, India has placed order for S-400 missile systems even after the objections from US. And so there have been threats of sanctions under CAATSA, or Countering America's Adversary Through Sanctions Act, which is a United States federal law that imposes restrictions or sanctions on Iran, North Korea and Russia. But it also includes sanctions against countries that engage in significant transactions with these three nations. And so we know that India's transaction with Russia is very significant. And so we'll see how the future President of United States of America resolves this particular issue. A deteriorating relationship of America and Iran has caused big trouble for our country, and that is one of the bases of the divergences of the foreign policy between these two nations. America and Iran view each other as extremely hostile and as an adversary to each other, whereas India sees Iran as a partner in matters of Afghanistan and also most important source of energy, that is petroleum and gas. But due to American sanctions, India had to cut down its oil imports from Iran, and that is also one of the divergences or the differences between the approach of these two nations. Then we know that America is critically dependent on Pakistan for Afghanistan. If it wants to exit Afghanistan in a timely manner, America has to depend on Pakistan. Pakistan will not only provide the proper exit route but also controls Taliban, and so America needs the help of Pakistan in order to engage Taliban into talks and into peace deals. Until the time Americans are embroiled in Afghanistan, the dependence of America on Pakistan will continue, and hence the divergence between India and US also. Then in matters of nuclear energy, a nuclear deal was signed in 2008, which was a watershed moment in the bilateral relation of India and US. Despite the historic nuclear deal, civilian nuclear cooperation has not taken off. India entered into an agreement with an American firm Westinghouse to build 6 nuclear reactors on Indian soil has not moved ahead because India has enacted nuclear liability clause. Because India passed the Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act in 2010, with its focus on setting liabilities on suppliers in case of a nuclear accident. And American companies want these nuclear liability laws to go before which they can invest. And so that has created a big issue in the matter of nuclear relation. Then there are some issues which do not have any convergence, and that deals with internal issues of India and the approach of United States of America on climate change. India generally adopts the policy of no interference in other countries' internal matters, and so it expects the same from other countries as well. But from time to time, various American institutions have commented on the status of religious freedoms, especially of minorities in our country, the recent abrogation of special status of Jammu and Kashmir, and conduct of NRC, and passage of Citizenship Amendment Act has also led to a lot of reports in America by various non-governmental organizations and also by government bodies, which has not gone down well with the government of India. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Joe Biden belongs to Democratic Party, which is left-leaning or liberal party in American political system, as opposed to Mr. Donald Trump, who belongs to a Republican Party, which is more of a conservative party. And so with the arrival of Mr. Joe Biden, it seems like these issues will get prominence. Also, in his election manifesto, Mr. Joe Biden had raised the issue of Jammu and Kashmir and rights of religious minorities in our country. But it still remains to be seen that after election, what he will do. We all know that US had withdrawn itself from the Paris climate deal. The early track record of Mr. Joe Biden shows that he is very serious on climate change, and the presidency of Joe Biden could see the coming back of America and adoption of Paris climate deal by that country. And so we should see some positive action in this direction. So all in all, the relationship between India and US is so multidimensional that a particular leader cannot in a single term change its direction. But the way or the pace in which the relationship moves in that particular direction can of course vary, and that is what remains to be seen. But if a question in the mains examination is asked on the analysis of the relationship of India and US relations, it is important to keep in mind the convergences as well as the divergences in various matters affecting the foreign policy. Let us now move on to the next news. So the next news which we are going to take up appears on page number 1. NRC, only 1032 doubtful cases referred for review. So only a little over 1000 doubtful cases in the final draft of the National Register of Citizens Assam have been referred to the district commissioners concerned for action, the state coordinator for the NRC has said in an RTI reply. And because of this instance, the issues related to the National Register of Citizens has again come to the fore, which was one of the most important topics for Polity and Governance last year. And now, since it has come to the limelight, it is important for us to give this topic a revision. And in this regard, Naweed sir has already held a detailed discussion with respect to NRC and NPR. And so we are going to watch that discussion and try to understand various dimensions and perspectives of both these issues. Let us now watch this discussion.
Now, amid this ongoing protest, specifically with respect to Citizenship Amendment Act and its link with NRC, this particular news has appeared in the same connection, explaining about National Population Register, National Register of Indian Citizens, and their connection with that of Census of India. So, let us understand these details as provided in this particular article. Now, the idea of National Population Register as well as National Register of Indian Citizens can be traced back to the Citizenship Act of 1955. Now, this concept of issue of national identity cards was added through the 2004 amendment. It says that the central government may compulsorily register every citizen of India and issue national identity card to him. Then it states that the central government may maintain a National Register of Indian Citizens, that is NRIC, and for that purpose establish a national registration authority. So this act says that to maintain this particular register named National Register of Indian Citizens, the government must establish an authority or a body named National Registration Authority. It further says that on and from the date of commencement of Citizenship Amendment Act 2003, the amendment through which Section 14A was added, the Registrar General of India, who is appointed under the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1969, shall act as the National Registration Authority. It further says that the central government may appoint such other officers and staff as may be required to assist the Registrar General of Citizen Registration in discharging his functions and responsibilities. And further says that the procedure to be followed in compulsory registration of citizens of India shall be such as may be prescribed. So basically, the central government is empowered to make rules with respect to NRIC, that is, with respect to conducting an exercise of registering every citizens in this country. So basically, NRIC shall be a subset of NPR. So primarily, the government will maintain a database known as National Population Register, as the National Population Register includes the residents. So out of those NPR, the government will find out that who are the citizens of India through this register. So whomsoever name appears in NRIC shall be considered Indian citizens. So this is basically the exercise as per Citizenship Act of 1955. Now this topic becomes important because, as you can see, in the year 2014, a question was asked in GS paper 2. The question read, two parallel run schemes of the government, that is Aadhaar card and NPR, one of the voluntary and other as compulsory, have led to debates at national levels and also litigations. On merits, discuss whether or not both schemes need run concurrently, that is both NPR and Aadhaar needs to run simultaneously. It further says that analyze the potential of the schemes to achieve developmental benefits and equitable growth. So this was the question asked in 2014. Considering the ongoing protest with respect to NRC, again questions may be asked whether the entire conduct of NRC in the entire country will have any developmental benefits and will it be a equitable growth story. So only time will tell that how NRC shapes into actual practice. So we understand that this topic becomes important from our examination perspective. So in your mains examination, this becomes a part of GS paper 2, specifically with respect to Indian Constitution, as well as functions and responsibilities of the Union and states, and also with respect to statutory and regulatory and other various quasi-judicial bodies, and also with respect to government policies and interventions for development in various sectors. So in this backdrop, let us understand what has been highlighted in this particular article. Now this article also mentions about census. So in this backdrop, let us go through certain basics about census. Census in India is conducted as per the Census Act of 1948. after every 10 years. It says that this act provides for certain matters in connection with taking of census. So hereby it mentions that central government to take census. So it says that the central government by official notification declares intention of taking a census in the whole or any part of territories to which this act extends. Further, section 4A of this act mentions that staff of every local authority to be made available for taking census. So it says that the central government has power to direct every local authority in a state whereby they have to make available their staff with respect to conduct of census in India. Now section 4 of this act mentions about appointment of census staff. Here the central government as well as the state government is empowered to appoint officers for the conduct of census in the entire country. It says that the central government may appoint a census commissioner to supervise the taking of census throughout the area in which census is supposed to be taken. And with respect to state government, it says that the state government may appoint persons as census officers with such designation as the government may specify or deem necessary. So both the central as well as the state government is empowered to appoint officers with respect to conduct of census in India. Now coming back to the article, this article has answered various questions with respect to NPR, NRIC, census, and has also linked these three aspects with Aadhaar as well as Citizenship Amendment Act. So after having a basic backdrop to this article, let us go through each of the questions posed in this particular article. Now it's important to note that this entire topic of NPR was also covered in the October 2019 edition of Focus magazine. So in this aspect, we shall also refer Focus magazine in between and also some of the official websites of the Government of India whereby they have answered some of the FAQs with respect to NPR, NRIC, census, Aadhaar as well as Citizenship Amendment Act. So the first question is, what is National Population Register? It highlights that NPR is a database containing list of usual residents of the country. It's important to note that NPR does not constitute all the citizens, rather it is a database of all usual residents of the country. And its objective is to have a comprehensive identity database of people residing in India. Now as you can see, this topic was also covered in the October 2019 edition of Focus magazine, whereby we had mentioned about NPR. Now we mentioned this because the Home Minister of India had floated this idea of one nation, one card and asserted that National Register of Citizens would be implemented across India. In the same address, the Home Minister also highlighted about the idea to resurrect National Population Register all over again despite successful implementation of Aadhaar. So he basically mentioned about three things, that is National Register of Citizen, National Population Register as well as about Aadhaar. So we mentioned about National Population Register. It says that NPR is a comprehensive identity database maintained by Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India under Ministry of Home Affairs. Now this again becomes an important aspect from your prelims point of view. Now this NPR is a register of usual residents of the country and not of the entire citizen and shall be prepared at local, sub-district, district, state and national level. Now we have already seen that NPR is being prepared under the provisions of Citizenship Act 1955 and Citizenship Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Card Rules 2003. And it says that it is mandatory for every usual resident of India to register in the NPR. Now, why this registration is mandatory in NPR? The registration is mandatory because it is only from the set of NPR the government will take out or maintain a list of NRIC, that is National Register of Indian Citizens, as per section 14A of Citizenship Act of 1955. So this again becomes a very important point from your prelims perspective. And it says that as per section 14A of Citizenship Act 1955, It is compulsory for every citizen of India to register in National Register of Indian Citizens, that is NRIC. So the NRC which is being talked about amid protest is actually NRIC, that is National Register of Indian Citizens. It further says that the creation of NPR is the first step towards preparation of National Register of Indian Citizens. Now the question is that who is a usual resident as per NPR? So as per Ministry of Home Affairs, usual resident of the country is one who has been residing in the local area for at least 6 months or intends to stay in a particular location for the next 6 months. So here are two aspects. First is his past location and next is his intended future location. So the person must have been residing in the area for the last 6 months and must intend to stay for another 6 months in the same place. It further says that NPR is different from National Register of Citizens. It says that unlike the NRC, NPR will not only include citizens but will also include foreigners, as it would record even a foreigner staying in a locality for more than 6 months as mentioned here. And this NPR database will contain both demographic as well as biometric details, which will then be seeded with Aadhaar. So these details provided in NPR will again be seeded or connected with Aadhaar. It says that the government also plans to seed or connect Aadhaar database with updated NPR. So we find a connection here with respect to NPR as well as Aadhaar. It further says that this updated NPR database along with Aadhaar number will become the mother database and can be used by various government departments for selection of beneficiaries under their respective schemes. So in times to come, once the entire exercise of NPR is completed, this database will be connected with that of Aadhaar. Now the next question is that what is the legal basis of NPR? This we have already discussed, as NPR is a mechanism outlined in a set of rules framed under Citizenship Act of 1955. Now the next question is there any link between NPR and Aadhaar? Now we have already seen that the database collected through NPR shall be merged or seeded with that of Aadhaar. Now here you must understand that before the coming of Aadhaar into picture, NPR already existed, and once the previous UPA government brought the idea of Aadhaar, the entire question of NPR versus Aadhaar came into being. So here the question is not only the link between NPR and Aadhaar, but whether NPR and Aadhaar shall exist simultaneously. The answer is yes, they shall exist simultaneously. So it says that during the early days of NPR enrollment under the UPA, the Unique Identification Authority of India scheme for issuance of Aadhaar numbers was also concurrently on. And accordingly, there was a conflict between the Union Ministry of Home Affairs as well as with respect to UIDAI with respect to Aadhaar and NPR. So effectively, it was agreed that both databases, that is that of NPR and that of Aadhaar, will exist with different objectives and that each will use others' biometric data, that is both will be seeded in times to come. Hereby it mentions that those already enrolled for Aadhaar need not give their biometric details again during NPR exercise. And at the same time, data captured for NPR would be sent to UIDAI for deduplication. Now this becomes an important aspect because whatever data shall be collected during NPR exercise shall be sent to UIDAI or for cross-checking of these datas. So effectively, this cross-check will weed out duplicate Aadhaar cards. It says that in case of discrepancy between Aadhaar and NPR data, the latter would prevail. So if there is any discrepancy between Aadhaar and NPR, then NPR would prevail and not Aadhaar. Now before going to the other questions discussed in this article, let us discuss about the backdrop to NPR. So the question is that when did this entire exercise of collection of data for National Population Register started? It says that the data was first collected in 2010 along with the house listing phase of census 2011. So here we see a connection of NPR with that of census in India. So it says that these data for NPR were actually taken from the census of 2011. It further mentions that in 2015, this data was further updated by conducting a door-to-door survey. So this data for NPR was then further updated in the year 2015 through door-to-door survey. However, this entire exercise with respect to NPR slowed down because of coming into picture of Aadhaar. So after mentioning about this register by Home Minister of India, this has again gained momentum. It says that NPR will again be conducted in conjunction with house listing phase from 1st April 2020 till 30th September 2020. So this entire exercise of NPR will again be conducted along with the census of 2021, as this date is the first phase of census for 2021. Now another important point to be noted is that only Assam will not be included with respect to this exercise of NRIC, because recently NRC was conducted in Assam. Now another important fact highlighted in the Focus magazine was connection between NPR and Aadhaar, as this has also been highlighted in this particular article. We have already seen this, that the data collected by NPR will be sent to UIDAI for deduplication and issue of Aadhaar. So overall the NPR will contain three elements, that is demographic data, biometric data as well as Aadhaar number of a person. However, an important point to be noted is that a person who is registered under Aadhaar still has to register compulsorily under NPR. So a person cannot opt out of NPR even though they have Aadhaar. So after understanding this connection, let us also understand the objective of this exercise of NPR. It says that the objective is to create a comprehensive identity database of every usual resident in the country, and also to help in better utilization and implementation of benefits and services under the government schemes with respect to improved planning and security in the country. So this database will effectively contain demographic as well as biometric details. Further, it says that updation of NPR will provide solution to various problems facing the country, ranging from effective maintenance of law and order to efficient implementation of welfare schemes like MG Narega, food security as well as nutrition campaign. Further, updation of NPR will help in tracking criminal activities and better planning and execution of government schemes, as the NPR links biometric and demographic details of an ordinary resident, and this effectively makes NPR a comprehensive database of the residents. So after understanding these benefits of NPR and its connection with Aadhaar, let us go back to the article to find out what the article has to say with respect to NPR as well as NRIC. So it says that what will happen after the entire exercise of NPR is completed. As already mentioned, that after the conduct of NPR is completed, the government will weed out or come up with the National Register of Indian Citizens, and this will be prepared at local, sub-district, district and state levels after verifying the citizenship status of these residents whose name have been provided in NPR. And the conduct shall be guided as per the citizenship rules of 2003. So as per the rules, particulars of every family and individual found in the NPR shall be verified and scrutinized by local registrar. And in the process, details of those whose citizenship is doubtful will be entered with a comment suggesting that further inquiry is necessary. So from these NPR, a list of NRIC shall be conducted, and with respect to those citizens whose citizenship is doubtful, shall be commented upon with respect to conduction of further inquiry. So those families or individuals on whom further inquiry is to be done shall be informed about such further inquiry, and they shall be given an opportunity with respect to being heard by the sub-district or taluk registrar of citizen registrations before a final decision about their citizenship status is taken by the government. So the government will provide opportunity to those people on whom citizenship status is doubtful, and this decision shall be made within a period of 90 days. The next question is the NRIC step then complete after this? Answer is no, because after this, a draft of local register of Indian citizens shall be compiled. And such compilation shall be published in the official gazette to invite objections or claims for inclusion or correction. So basically, once this draft list of NRIC is completed, then such draft shall be published so that people can claim their objections or can come up for any correction in the draft NRIC. However, the time limit for any correction or inclusion with respect to draft NRIC has been provided at 30 days. It says that any objection or request for inclusion must be made within 30 days of the publication of the draft. And once any objection or claim has been stated to this particular draft, then such objection or claim shall be disposed of within 90 days. So after such issues has been disposed by the sub-district or taluk registrar, thereafter the entries in the local register will be transferred to the national register. So first there shall be a draft, then there shall be an entry made in the local register, after which such local register shall be transferred to the national registrar. Further, any person who is aggrieved by this exclusion can file an appeal to the district registrar within 30 days, and this appeal shall be disposed of by the district registrar within a period of 90 days. Now another important question is that what are the documents that would help establish citizenship? Now as of now, the government is not yet clear with respect to the exact details with respect to documentation. However, the government says that any document that shows date of birth, place of birth or both will be sufficient, and that common documents will be accepted, such as Aadhaar or passport. However, the government so far has not clarified on this common document. So let us wait for the government to clarify with respect to certain documents which would be necessary to establish citizenship. It then says that many state governments have said NPR would not be implemented. Is this possible? Now, as of now, this remains more of a political decision. But as per the Census Act of 1948, if this is conducted through census listing exercise, then it shall be mandatory for the governments to maintain a list of NPR. However, even to conduct NPR, staffs and officials are required at state level. So it is incumbent upon the various state governments whether to provide them these staff or not. So it says that as the house-to-house enumeration is part of the census operation, it is unlikely that NPR process can go ahead without state government cooperation or state government agreeing to deploy their staff for this particular purpose. However, census is in charge of the central government, and if the central government says so, then the state government has to abide by the central diktat. And this is also because census forms part of Union List of 7th Schedule under entry 69. Now this article also mentions about section 4A of Census Act, which we have also seen or also gone through, as it says that the central government can ask staff of every local authority to be made available for taking census exercise. So if the entire exercise is carried as part of census exercise of 2021, then it becomes mandatory for the state to comply with the census rules. However, it must be noted that some of these states who are denying as of now is not with respect to census exercise, but it is with respect to NRC, that is National Register of Citizens. Now the last question here is that what is the relationship between NPR and Citizenship Amendment Act? Technically speaking, there is no link between NPR and Citizenship Amendment Act. However, the Home Minister has said that after the Citizenship Amendment Act is passed, he will conduct NRC, that is National Register of Citizens, in this entire country. And this conduct of NRC with respect to providing documentation proof of citizenship has created fears mostly among the minority communities in India, as they fear that it is the intention of the government to exclude such minority communities from the list of NRIC. But on this, the government says that the minorities need not fear, and also because so far the government has not framed any particular rule or has not framed any particular law with respect to conduct of NRC in the entire country. So considering the ongoing protest with respect to National Register of Citizen and Citizenship Amendment Act of 1955, this topic becomes very important for us to understand from an examination perspective. With this, let's move on to our next news discussion.
Page number 7 of today's newspaper has a news item which is important from the perspective of prelims examination. UN tourism body honors weavers hub Pochampalli. So you might have heard about Pochampalli saris, and this news is related to that. In terms of syllabus, this is important both from the perspective of prelims as well as for mains. In prelims, it will come under current events of national and international importance. Apart from that, it will also come under art and culture for history. Similarly, from the perspective of mains, it will come under General Studies Paper 1, again in the part of art and culture. Now let's take a look in terms of the news and why Pochampalli is important from the perspective of UPSC examination. So the context is there for you. Pochampalli has been selected as one of the best tourism villages by the UNWTO, that is World Tourism Organization. In terms of location, Pochampalli is located in Telangana state. Now there are few inherent features of Pochampalli ikat saris. The first and foremost is intricate geometric design, which makes these saris very distinct in their design. Apart from that, there is minute detailing, which is actually the signature of these type of saris. Now these saris are made of silk, but at the same time they are very lightweight, and the colors for these saris is drawn from natural sources. Now there are very interesting aspect in terms of Pochampalli saris. The important element is the title name ikat. Now ikat is a system of dyeing. So Pochampalli saris use dyeing system, which is ikat, and based on that saris are made. Now when you talk about ikat is practiced not only in Pochampalli but also in Odisha and also in Gujarat. Now these are important pieces of information for which you should make notes. Another interesting feature about this Pochampalli is that the fabric which is produced here has also received geographical indication status in 2005. And Pochampalli also figures in UNESCO's tentative list for World Heritage Site under iconic sari weaving clusters of India. So in this particular fashion, the art and culture of Pochampalli saris and ikat system of dyeing is important from the perspective examination. Now let's train our attention towards UNWTO. Now we are aware of the fact that international organizations are important from the perspective of prelims as well as for mains, and hence we need to focus our attention for UNWTO. Now UNWTO, the full form is UN's World Tourism Organization, and is a specialized agency of the UN. Now the basic purpose of this WTO is promotion of responsible, sustainable and universally accepted tourism. Now you must be aware of the fact that tourism is something which is very important for keeping the economies in motion, especially after the COVID-19 impact in which tourism has taken a maximum hit. We need to have a system in which tourism can be promoted. It will lead to economic development, economic recovery, and also we need to figure out the measures of sustainable tourism, and that is what the inherent purpose of UNWTO is. Now let us try to understand how tourism is driver of economic growth and development. Here some of the figures will actually help you. In terms of travel and tourism industry, if we look into the entire dimension, the travel and tourism industry is around $4.67 trillion in weight, which is very significant. Even if you talk about from Indian standards, the contribution of tourism is around $192 billion. So we can see that the economic impact of tourism is very high, and we can actually use this for economic development. Second important aspect is environmental sustainability. We all are aware of the fact that eco-tourism is a very important aspect that we need to highlight, and somewhere environmental sustainability is something which is key in terms of maintaining the right approach for development as well as for tourism. Apart from that, there is a need of advancing knowledge and tourism policies as well. So there are so many places around the globe which are yet to be explored in the true sense. Apart from that, there should be policies in which what to do and what not to do. In the aspect of above point, the global code of ethics for tourism, this is also one of the primary responsibilities of UNWTO. Now when we talk about SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals, eliminating poverty and fostering sustainable development is something which comes under the ambit of UNWTO as well. So this is something that sets an agenda for UNWTO, and you should pay attention to this particular aspect as well when you prepare for the prelims examination.
So this news appears on page number 7 and it says villages on Periyar banks in alert mode. Water level in Mullaperiyar dam rising. Now in this news we need to know that Mullaperiyar dam is located in the Cardamom Hills in the Western Ghats in the state of Kerala, and this dam has been built upon the Periyar river. Now Periyar river is the longest river in Kerala, and this originates from Shivsagari Hills in Western Ghats, flows through the Periyar National Park and reaches the Periyar Lake. Now once it reaches the Periyar Lake, the water then flows to Vembanad Lake and then finally flows to the Arabian Sea. Another important point is that Periyar Lake Dam is maintained by Tamil Nadu government. So in this news we understood about Mullaperiyar Dam, which is located in Kerala in the Idukki district, and this dam has been built upon the Periyar river. Now Periyar river is the longest river in Kerala, originates from Shivsagari Hills in Western Ghats, flows through Periyar National Park and reaches the Periyar Lake. From there it flows through the Vembanad Lake and finally drains into the Arabian Sea. And Periyar Lake Dam is maintained by Tamil Nadu government. Now this news becomes important from the perspective of environment and geography.